I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
From the gates of Mount Rome to the far corners of the endless highway, wherever you are, welcome to the show.
So you believe in some kind of Armageddon?
Yeah, most definitely. We in the last times and days right now. The Illuminati's in effect.
Whether we are talking conspiracy, alternative theories, or even hidden history, we have a legend in the game here today. Author, researcher, podcaster, filmmaker, Jay Weidner. Welcome to the show, Jay.
Hey, well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been aware of you for a while. I listened to Reality Check, and I've always liked your work. And I know you know a lot of people who are like old school, I'll just say conspiracy theorists, just to use that term. I consider myself one, so it's not a derogatory thing. But a long time ago, before 2020, before I had my official red pill moment, I used to listen to Coast, and I watched Jesse Ventura.
Yeah.
So they had a hand in, inspiring this show. And I think you knew Art and you know Jesse, right?
Oh, yeah. I was on with Jesse on conspiracy theory at the Denver airport. I gave him a tour.
Yes.
Really fun.
I missed that show.
Yeah.
That was a wild show. I mean, when I was watching that show, probably in 2008, 2010,
Yeah.
I was such a normie, but like I believed a lot of the stuff that he was putting forward. I'm like, man, this guy knows some stuff.
He does. Yeah, you know about his story about the day he became governor of Minnesota?
I don't remember the details, no.
So he wins the election with only 35% of the vote. And because there was three people running. And but he barely squeaked by. So it's his first day as governor. He's in the governor's office. He has his feet up on the chair. He's about to light a cigar, going, "This is pretty friggin' cool." And all of a sudden, the door opens, and this dweeby little guy walks in and says, "Governor, you're wanted downstairs." And he gets up and follows the little dweeby guy, and they go down the elevator, and they go into the basement of the Capitol building. He'd never been in the basement. And they walk down this big, long hallway, and they go to this room. They open up the door, and there's an oval table with about 25 people sitting around it. And one of the people stands up and says, "Well, welcome, Governor." And Jesse looks and he sees that there's postmen, UPS people, there's a nun, there's a bank teller he recognizes, there's a cop, right? All these people, right, are in this room. And he's like really mystified. He says, "Well, who the hell are you people?" And the guy that stood up goes, "Well, we're the local CIA." And Jesse goes, "Well, that's impossible because the CIA's charter says that you can't operate inside the United States." And the whole room breaks out laughing, right? And they say, "Sit down." So he sits down, and they take the next 8 hours, and each person tells Jesse what he can and cannot do for the next 4 years. And by the time they got all the way done, the 8 hours is up, Jesse is in his mind going, "I'm going to finish these 4 years, and I am never running again."
Wow.
So anyone who thinks that they're not watching you, you aren't paying attention.
Mm. And of course, Jesse's not the kind of guy who you tell, don't talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah, it freaked him out because some of the stuff he didn't tell me, of course, because he kept his word. But some of the stuff he said, you first think it's so trivial that why are they bothering with this? And then you start thinking about it, and after a while, you realize, oh, if this one gets out, then this one will get out, and this will get out, right? So you got to bottle it up all the way to the top to make it work. And Eric Weinstein, the physicist, was just on some podcast I was watching, and he was saying how we have no idea what's going on in physics. He's a top physicist at a top university. He says, we have no idea what's going on in physics. It's all locked up in Navy research programs and military ops and Lockheed Martin. And he says, we're so far behind in the real physics that we don't know. And so even the physics that he says he understands, he realizes there's another physics that's way beyond what he understands, and there is. And there's a real effort right now to get that out, by the way. A very concerted effort is being made on many, many levels Stephen Greer is leading the charge of getting this free energy out. And this is the closest we've ever been. We're actually talking about the Green Beret who did the Las Vegas bombing, wrote about it in his manifesto or whatever it was. And so we've never been this close in my entire lifetime to getting it out. I can't tell you how many people I know who were murdered or their careers were completely destroyed, who were right on the edge of it, and then something terrible would happen to them. And so this is I'm the most optimistic and hopeful that I've ever been.
Yeah, there's a clip. I don't know if this fits in, but it came to mind as you're talking. There's a clip out of Randall Carlson on Joe Rogan. It's the episode he did with Graham Hancock, and he alludes to these kind of like these big secrets of science that are about to like raise to the surface. And I went back and I listened to some other clips from that episode, and I just hit repeat. I just kept listening to what he was saying because he was talking about something that was kind of elusive, but he was using words like electromagnetism and plasma.
Yeah, he's talking about Malcolm Bendall. Randall's a good friend of mine. I've known him for years. Yeah, so Malcolm Bendall is an Australian scientist who was scooped up by the Navy. Didn't believe an Australian can get scooped up by the U.S. Navy. I don't know how that happened. But he got scooped up by the Navy, and for 20 years he worked for the Navy, and the Navy is the leading edge of this research. What happened is that after World War II, the Navy found their giant propellers on their ships had these cavities, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of these little cavities that was actually destroying the propeller. And it wasn't rust because these were stainless steel. So they couldn't figure out what was going on, and they called together a bunch of scientists, and they looked at the problem because it was costing the Navy millions of dollars. And the scientists looked at this problem and came back and said, what's going on is the spinning blade inside the fluid of the ocean is causing hyperdimensional activity to occur where little vortexes are boring their way. Little electrical vortexes are boring their way like tornadoes. And the tip of the tornado will hit the propeller, and because the propeller is spinning, it will spin really fast and bore a little hole in it. And then this got the whole Navy off on this big giant research program where by 56, late 1956, they had discovered anti-gravitics and free energy. Up until late 1956, Popular Mechanics and all these men magazines that were out at the time had articles about they were right on the edge of anti-gravity and free energy. And this was like a very, very, very big thing going on for all during the 50s. And then suddenly in late 1956, it got completely cut off. Everybody stopped talking about it. And that's because it went underground. Why it went underground, we don't know. I have some theories though. And so this has all been bottled up. The people involved in these projects from the mid 50s on till today have the same routine done to them. They say, wow, they say to their superiors, wow, this technology could save our planet. We could take down all the hydroelectric dams. We could get rid of all the nuclear power plants. We don't have to have roads anymore because people can fly around in these anti-gravity cars. And said, why don't you release it? They said, oh, we are. In 10 years, we're going to release it. They told the people in the 50s in 10 years, the 60s in 10 years, all the way up until today. And today they're still telling the people that are questioning them, we're going to release this in 10 years. Well, what's going on now is that some of those people involved in these projects, and they're in their late 40s, they've been involved for maybe 20 years, they're now beginning to realize that what they're doing is illegal. And so they're like going to their superiors and not saying, when are you going to release this? They're saying, I'm afraid I'm going to get arrested and I'm going to go out and be out in the public because if I don't get ahead of this, they're going to come and arrest us because what you are doing and what I am doing with you is friggin' illegal. It's and it's a criminal activity, and it also is RICO, violation of the RICO laws, because it's a group of guys secretly working on a project and keeping it from the rest of the people using our money to do it. And so the pressure is really building now. And I got an email from Cliff High a couple days ago. I don't know if I should say this. I mean, he might get mad at me, but he said there's a lot very indications that there's going to be some serious stuff in the next 2 or 3 weeks, like stuff where you have to go get something to protect yourself with because it's going to get so dangerous. So that's all I'm going to say about that because I don't want to violate my privacy with him. But this is amazing and it is astonishing. And if you can like hold out for the next 5 to 8 years, you should be able to have technology that allow you to live to be 200 or 300 years old easily. You should be able to go from New York to Melbourne, Australia in a couple hours in a craft that uses no energy and has no pollution. You just get in the craft and you say Melbourne, and the AI reads it, knows exactly where to go. And you just sit back and read a book or watch a video or whatever, and you're there in like an hour and a half. And this is going to become ubiquitous. And it's either that or it's going to be some kind of martial law where they stop us completely. So that's really, we're at that crux in history, and it's actually mind-boggling.
Yeah. I want to tell people too, because I do listen to Reality Check. I remember back in 2022 when you were talking about in the next 5 years, you were making some mild predictions, and I'm I, I don't remember the exact quote, but you were saying something about like in the next 5 years, we're going to start to see some mellowing out. This like I think the context was like the woke culture is going to dissipate. People are going to leave the cities, so they're going to get out in the countries and in the country, and they're going to start really exercising freedom the way it was meant to be exercised in this country. And I see that happening. I feel like right now in North America, you're seeing this woke purge. Even today, I saw that Emperor Trudeau is about to step down in Canada. So hopefully it's spreading to our neighbors as well. But I do want to remind people that you said in 2022 that in the next 5 years, you did see this happening.
Yeah, well, it's just a natural outgrowth. Also, we're moving out of the Kali Yuga. We're out of the Kali Yuga. We're in the Dvapara Yuga, which is So there's four yugas, four cycles of time. And a few hundred years ago, we exited out of the Kali Yuga. And you know this by the Reformation in science that happened in the 1700s. Suddenly we could travel. It's hard to imagine what life was like before, say, 1700. You were pretty much born into a village. You did what your father did, and then you died in that village, and you knew about 25 people. And there was no newspapers, there was no books, there was no nothing. You had no way to get information. And then that started changing, and now it's, of course, accelerating, where we can get incredible amounts of information at the tip of our finger for free. And so as we move, and what's guiding the Yuga system is the oscillation of our solar system on the rim or the edge of the galaxy. And so what happens is that our solar system, the plane of the galaxy is like a plate around the center of the galaxy. And it's filled with, stars and rocky debris and everything. And as our solar system goes behind that plate, all the emanations from the center of the galaxy stop. All this etheric energy that we have been getting goes away for the entire time we're passing behind the plate of the galaxy. Right now, we're just coming out the top. We're just coming out the top, and we're getting all this galactic emanations, this etheric energy coming from galactic center for the first time in thousands of years. That's why the sun was yellow and now it's white, because the sun is being affected by these galactic emanations. And now the sun is so bright, you can barely look at it, like say 2 in the afternoon when it's on a clear day. And I live at 8,000 feet, and it's even more glaring for me. So what's happening is, and the elites know this, by the way. My first book, Monument to the End of Time, is about a monument in the south of France that is telling us this exact information about how time is cycled in and out. And so every day we're getting smarter. Every day we're getting more aware. And the elites know it, and they know that we're going to become aware of them on a mass level very, very soon. And then the crimes are going to come out because they're not going to be able to stop it. And it's happening right now in England. Twitter, Elon Musk is identifying all of the rape rings in London, and where it was been completely hidden for 10 years, and now it's suddenly coming out, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. And it's gonna be weird, awkward, strange, and amazing all at the same time. And as I like to say, get ready and hide the children.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned Cliff High, and recently I saw some of his work come up with this New Jersey drone ongoing incident. There's this Cliff High prediction that, well, I think it came out in 2009. I think that's when he put it out, and it was to do with an interview that Joe Rogan was going to have with Donald Trump, I think about the presidency. And then in 2022,
I don't think it was Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan wasn't on in 2009, but I think it was
okay.
It was a famous internet talk show host.
There you go. Right.
Going to interview a presidential candidate, and it would rock the world 39 days later.
Yeah.
And he thought it was going to be Obama. Then he thought it was going to be Trump in the first term, and it never happened. And of course, Joe was refusing by that time to interview Trump. He only agreed after Patrick David Bett, or whatever his name is, told Rogan to interview him. Mm-hmm. So Joe interviews Trump, and it becomes like the most watched show in, I don't know, centuries. And 39 days later was December 3rd of this year, our last year. And that's when the whatever they are started going on in New Jersey and elsewhere, including here where I live in Southern Colorado. So, and what's interesting about that whole phenomena, well, besides the fact that Cliff actually, predicted it, which is pretty astonishing. But he did predict the crash of 2008, the couple of other things that were right on. I mean, he actually picked the date for the crash in 2008, like on the day. It was like, wow, it was amazing. He was a year out too that he was predicting it. So, um, so what's going on with these drones is they're not, I don't know why we're calling them drones. Uh, they're drones. I own drones. Okay.
Yeah,
None
yeah.
of my drones have lights on them. Come on. It'd be crazy to fly a drone, even with lights on at night, unless you had night vision, right? It would be crazy. Could you hit something? You're going to hit something for sure. You'll hit something in the daytime. I have. So, it's ridiculous. So, and about half of the videos that I've watched that aren't airplanes or helicopters or whatever, um, are like plasma orbs that are made out of plasma. They're buzzing, and you can see they're kind of moving and morphing, and so we have two different things. We have these plasma orbs, which are coming out of somewhere, and we have the drones. Also, this year, there's been two scientific papers in February and October of 24 that a group of scientists, astrophysicists, biologists, a group of like 25 scientists say that there are living, intelligent plasma entities in our atmosphere, and they may even cause airplane crashes. And they have the photographs of them, and they have video of them. And I've seen them, and they're up there, and it's almost like they've decided to make themselves known. And they show a degree of intelligence. I don't know what degree, a dog level or a
Mhm.
chimpanzee level, or maybe even a human level, or maybe even beyond a human level. We don't know. But all this phenomena is happening at once. That's what's so important about all this.
Yeah, and you're right. I want to go back to something. You mentioned that they were out there in Colorado as well, these quote unquote drones. I do think that this is, I looked into it enough to realize that this does seem like it's happening in many, many states, if not just across the nation.
Yeah.
And we have had some weird stuff here in Nashville as well. I was going to dinner a couple weeks ago. I was headed towards downtown because I was going to this restaurant that Sean Brock did called Husk. So I knew I was going towards downtown. I wasn't driving, and there was a strange low, it looked like a little airplane coming towards us. And I just kept looking at it because something was off, and it had what they're describing is it had that red light on one end and green on the other. But the thing is, it was so close to downtown, Jay, that it's a no-fly zone. So, and then I started getting emails from listeners saying that they were seeing them in Nashville as well. But the weirdest part about this was as soon as that happened, my phone, I experienced a mandatory update on my phone. And that's what really freaked me out because I don't allow updates. I just use the phone until it craps out. I try to get 3 or 4 years out of it, but I don't want all the spyware and all the other nonsense that comes with the up. So I don't do that. And it updated my phone like 5 times without my approval. So that's what really kind of scared me about this.
Yeah, it's a strange phenomena. I was once at I wouldn't say a highly guarded government facility, but it was a NOAA facility, atmospheric, oceanic and atmospheric association, and it was high on a hill overlooking Boulder, Colorado. And I went up there to do my drone. I wanted to, fly over Boulder from a high altitude, and I couldn't use my drone, and it wouldn't work. And so I later talked to a guy who worked at that facility. I said, "Hey, I tried to fly a drone there. It wouldn't work." He goes, "Oh, no, no, we have signal jamming up there." And I thought, well, when I saw this drone activity, I'm like, well, get your signal jammers out, right?
Yeah,
Why aren't we doing that, right?
right.
And to this day, I don't know why. I know they
Yep.
got the technology. So they're letting them fly, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
stop them.
They've had that technology too. I mean, I watched the interview the other day with John Trump, Trump's uncle, and he was talking about when Tesla died, I think it was 43. He went in with the FBI and was looking through a lot of Tesla stuff. And in this interview, he's talking about he found or was working with some sort of technology that allowed them to take objects out of the sky.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah, well, Wilhelm Reich was working on that too.
Hmm.
So, and they both got in trouble. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and
John Trump, that's a really interesting story there about how Trump's uncle was the guy who kind of went through Tesla's papers at the end there. And that whole that whole Trump, Tesla, secret aerospace
yeah.
projects, that is just the strangest set of weird coincidences that I've ever stumbled upon. You know, the airships of 1897, and then Charles Delshaw's artwork was discovered in a pawn shop in Texas somewhere, and it's clear that he worked with these German Americans in California to build these airships, and they were working with liquid mercury, and he did about 150 paintings about all of this that were found in this pawn shop that are all famous now. One of them has an airship, and then there's a sign across the top. So now remember, this is 1880s or so that these were done, and it says Trump, and then in the
45.
bottom corner it says 45. You're like, what in the world is going on? And then there's the Adventures of Baron Trump
Yep.
from 1910. The same author that wrote the Baron Trump lives in a castle right where Trump Tower is today in Manhattan. And Baron Trump is a time traveler who goes back and forth in time. And the same guy that wrote those books also wrote the book The Last President, in which the president of the United States gets elected. And he's so controversial that the entire country is torn to ribbons by him. And then Trump comes and he names his son Barron. You're like, okay, all
Yeah.
right. There's a TV show from the 1950s, a Western that I saw about 5 years ago. And in this Western, 1950s Western, a stranger comes into the old West town and his name is Trump. And he tells the mayor that they're in great danger and they need to build a wall around the town to keep everybody out. It's really important. And he has a big rally of the town, and he talks the town into building a wall around the town. And eventually found out to be a con man. But the number of times that people use the word Trump in this 30-minute cowboy Western it's like maybe 40 times that
Wow.
they use the word Trump. It'd be, like you calling me Weidner like 50 times in 30 minutes. It'd be like, wait, will you shut up, And it's just those things are just so weird,
Yeah, yeah. It's like the pre-programming for this guy, for Trump, is just off the charts. It's all through pop culture. And I'm glad we talked about the Delshau and the airship thing, because earlier when you were talking about the anti-gravity in the 50s and all that, of course, they just keep pushing it back a decade. Like every decade they're telling people, "Oh, you'll have it, this time around or whatever." But that got me thinking about this whole mystery airship, if we want to call it a breakaway civilization thing, that does go back to the 1850s, I think, with this group, this German group, NIMSA.
Yeah, well, it goes further than that. It really goes back to Napoleon. So
Oh,
early 1800s. Napoleon, I believe, is the financial force behind this esoteric secret group. I call them Project X. And what Project X is doing is it's examining everything. And I believe that the Germans in World War II came out of Project X. Not that Project X instigated any of that, just a lot of the people that were in Project X were also in the German Anunnaki group that was researching the occult and all of that. And Napoleon understood that the melting of the minds of the French esoteric tradition, which is deep and long, and German technocratic expertise was the key to advancing everything, I believe. And so he melted those two together into Project X. So we have these incredibly intelligent German engineers and these incredibly advanced French esotericists who get together. Fulcanelli, who I'm the follower of, is one of these guys. He was probably in Project X, a later version of it. The French group, what are they called? I'm going to forget their name, but anyway, there's a French group that of like Jacques Cousteau, not Cocteau, the filmmaker, was in it. Da Vinci was in it. All these people going back were in it. And again, it was all part of this project that's been going on for a long time. And I believe that the breakaway civilization and the secret space program and all the stuff that Ben Rich talks about at Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works is all a result of this project that began a long, long time ago by Napoleon. And now they're secret. And we are trying to force these secrets out into the open. And maybe we weren't ready. Maybe there were reasons why they kept it secret, and maybe we're still not ready. I have been told, and I understand how it works, that in the wrong hands, some of this stuff could get really out of control. So back to where you're talking about before with Randall Carlson, Malcolm Bendall invented a machine called the thunderstorm generator. And what the thunderstorm generator does is pretty much create exactly inside this little toroidal vortex the exact conditions that are created during a thunderstorm. And what that is a gigantic plasma, because what a thunderstorm is an explosion of plasma in the atmosphere. And so it's controlled plasma outbursts. And this is alchemy. This is what alchemy is about. Alchemy is about the manipulation of plasma and how you do it. And it's the secret fire, the fire that does not burn. All the alchemical slogans that you can come up with, right, that are described. So they knew about this for hundreds and hundreds of years. And Napoleon got those alchemists together, and and this is all then gets centered in the Navy. What's really interesting about this, and I've never said this before, I don't think in public, but when I was researching for my first book, A Monument to the End of Time, which I wrote with Vincent Bridges, we went to France for a long time to research it. And what we did was we went to famous ancient French alchemist houses. Fulcanelli wrote a book called Dwelling of the Philosophers, in which he listed these houses. And they're all now museums all across France, where all this alchemical gear is kept and everything. And so we went and we studied, and there was this alchemical tradition in France at about the 12th century, which was a secret society. And most people don't know about this. And my good friend Vincent is now dead, and he was the expert in all of this. And they were called the Nautineers. They called themselves the Nautineers, and they gave themselves Navy classifications. So there was admirals and all the Navy classifications that the navies around the world are famous for. And so every one of these alchemist houses that we went to go see from the 12th century, 13th century, all had Navy Nautineer insignias and uniforms and the whole thing. And so somehow the Navy has been involved in all of this for literally thousand years. And the Navy has shifted. It was, it was France, then it became England, then it became the United States. And now the Navy in the United States is the most powerful Navy of all. And all of this exotic research is coming out of the US Navy. And that's where Malcolm Bendall is coming from. And a bunch of other Navy guys are now coming out with all sorts of discussions of famous, really good exotic technologies. And you have to remember that the person who came to Trump in early 2015 and asked him to run for office was a naval intelligence officer named Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon said that he represented a group of people in the military who were sick and tired of what was going on, and they wanted Trump to run so that they could change everything going on in the United States. So this whole thing is coming from that. And
it's like an old nautical secret society,
yeah, and
like Captain Nemo or something, right?
well, yeah, and we know that it goes back even further. We know that the Phoenicians were really, really, really good with sailing.
Yes.
And they were the first really good sailors. And we know that they went out into the world before anybody else. They brought back iron from India. Iron was not discovered for 200 years after the Phoenicians brought it back. They were smelting iron in Phoenicia, but they weren't telling anyone else that they had the secret. Then finally the secret was out. The Phoenicians also were probably the ones that brought back the cocaine from South America. We know that Egyptian mummies have cocaine in them because we took hair samples, and they have tobacco and cocaine in their bodies when they died, and tobacco and cocaine only come from South America. So I believe the Phoenicians were everywhere. I believe that they were mining copper in the Great Lakes in the United States, those giant copper mines in Michigan. I believe that that was the Phoenicians who must have had maps. The Imperial East maps, which is a famous map, which shows, South America and Antarctica and all that. I believe that's a Phoenician map. So I believe that this, and if you were the first people that took boats out into the world, guess what? You're the first people that know where all the good land is. You're the first people that can start understanding languages of other people all around the earth. You're the first people that knows where everything is located, right? You're the first people to know where all the good logging is, where all the good gold is, because you're talking to the locals. Oh yeah, there's gold over there, right? They don't care, And the Phoenicians were very careful too. They had a rule that you never let a foreigner in your house, right? That if you're going to meet somebody who's not from a Phoenician, that you'd meet in a bar or a cafe or whatever, but not in your house. Why? Because their houses were opulent castles, and they didn't want anyone to find out how much they had. And so my theory is that the Phoenicians became the people who showed the Portuguese and the Spanish how to build their boats so that they could conquer the New World. And then they switched later and brought the secrets of the naval prowess to England. And England then became the naval power of the world. And then they switched it from the Navy of England to our Navy. And our Navy, frankly, has been protecting the world shipping for the last 80 years, ever since the end of World War II. That's why we have free trade, is because the Navy protects the whole world from pirates and everything else. And now the Navy doesn't like the political situation in the United States and hasn't liked it for a long time. They're mad that the CIA was created because the Navy intelligence was the central form of intelligence until 1947. The Central Intelligence Agency has been asking naval intelligence for all of these records since 1947, and Navy doesn't want to give them up. They still to this day don't want to give them up. And they're mad that the CIA got created. And so in 1960, the CIA had been around for 13 years and the Navy didn't know what they were up to. So in 1960, the Navy ran two presidential candidates that were both Office of Naval Intelligence, Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy, knowing that they couldn't miss. They had one of their guys as president. So Kennedy won barely, and immediately had his brother Bobby start going through all the records, finding all sorts of absolutely horrifying crap, like the mafia and the CIA had gotten married together in the 1950s and were associating themselves with assassinations and all sorts of terrible things, running drugs and everything. And then, of course, we know what happened to Kennedy. And then the next president that was naval intelligence was Nixon, and he was driven out of office by Watergate, which is a totally bogus, made up bullshit thing. All the Watergate burglars were CIA, all of them, and he did it to overthrow Nixon, and then. The next president that was with the Navy was Carter. He only lasted 4 years. No Navy presidents last very long. And then the CIA was right back again. Reagan wasn't CIA, but he wasn't Navy, and he was manipulated heavily by the CIA into getting into Iran-Contra and all the rest. But he did approve the secret space program, which was run by the Navy. And then the last president, so there's a big long time after Carter where there was no more Office of Navy Intelligence presidents. And then Steve Bannon asked Trump to run. And so Trump, while never serving in the Navy, was serving at the behest of the Navy. And then he was hounded like no one ever in history. And he didn't lose in 2020, but they made it look like he lost. And now he's back, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
It should be pretty interesting.
It's going to be interesting. Trump starts Space Force. I think that kind of ties into a lot of what you laid out there. Trump, we've talked about the Trump Tesla tie. There's the Elon Musk tie. Before Musk backed Trump, he was storing all his SpaceX stuff on the Space Force bases. So he's got these military back channel contracts. So there's stuff always constantly, like you've just laid out, brewing behind the scenes. I love the Navy intelligence tie into this. And I do want to say too, in regards to the Phoenicians, I think you're absolutely right. I think that they have been coming over here for a very long time. I think they were using the Mississippi as a giant superhighway to run that copper in and out of the Great Lakes. And the Perry Reese map, that's in Istanbul in a museum. And it just kind of makes sense. Like it's off the Mediterranean. The Phoenicians were running a big operation out of that Constantinople and
Yep.
whatever it was called at the time, but I think it was Constantinople, that region. So it all kind of ties in together.
Yeah, and the Phoenicians were, I mean, a lot of the anomalous stuff that we find, I believe, is from the Phoenicians. And I believe that they um, brought back the secrets of alchemy
Yes.
to the Mediterranean and spread it. And I think that they also, well, I want to be careful how I say this, but there's a lot of evidence that we've had underwater aliens for a long time. The Japanese believe that they mated with these underwater aliens and created the Japanese people. And Oannes comes out of the water with a fish body and teaches us great wisdom. And
Honest.
and I believe that if I believe that whoever got out to the oceans first met these underwater aliens. That's what I think. And I think that they did. They met them and they learned a lot of knowledge from them. And they're kind of uh, secretly running the world. I'll
Yeah.
say that. Yeah.
Oannes goes back to, I think, the old Sumerian myths where he was said to come out of the Persian Gulf and teach the people, I think, the Enuma Elish, like the creation myth. So that goes way back.
Yeah,
This
ancient
connection with us
Enlil.
and water.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And um, and so we have this long tradition of this relationship with the ocean that really nobody really talks about. But and it's also interesting that Oannes is probably the origin of the word Johann, which is John, and John is ion because J and I are interchangeable. Ion is, of course, a description of the real universe, which is the electric universe, and how it really works. And so you can kind of see that built even into the language is all this alchemical, electric universe, you know, very powerful stuff, which we are, because of YouTube and because of X, we are now being educated in a way that we've never been. And it's younger people. It's really wonderful to see, people in their early 40s, discussing this stuff openly and knowledgeably. I mean, they really know what they're talking about. And it means that all the work that us old farts have been doing for 30 years is really starting to have a payoff. And you have no idea how gratifying that is. Because there were times, I'll tell you, man, when I really wondered whether I should even be talking in public. I had girlfriends and wives begging me to shut up, and uh, I just felt like I had to say what I had to say, because if we don't say it, then the younger people are never going to learn it. And if they don't learn it, then it didn't get passed on, and that's our bad. And so we have to take those chances. And now you guys have to do it. Now
Yeah.
you guys have to take the more advanced knowledge that's coming downstream right now, and you have to say it. And you have to say it loud, you have to say it strong and openly. And then the people that are in their late teens and early 20s will hear it, right? It won't seed right away, but it will eventually. And then that is how we're going to change it. And what I am advocating is, forget trying to make money off of any of this. Um, I know you got this great free energy device that you've invented, and you're going to make millions and millions of dollars off of it, but don't patent it. Just release it on the internet. Show us how to make it. Let us make it. Let everyone have their own free energy device on their farm or their house so they can run all the stuff off of it. You will make money. You will get your karma back. Don't worry about it. It will happen. But we can't live by the same rules that we were living by. It won't work. That's how they've been controlling us. And if you want your free energy device to be out, um, we'll make you well known, and we'll thank you for it, and you'll be on Joe Rogan and all the podcasts and everything. And believe me, you will make money. You can make money just by being famous. All right.
Yeah.
So you don't have to make the money from the device. Give it to us. That will make you famous. And somebody's going to do it.
Yeah.
I will
It
hear.
goes Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I'm itching for to see some of this because that's goes back again to this Randall Carlson thing. He was saying that there's a group of people behind the scenes right now working very hard to make sure that this information does not get suppressed ever again. And he says it on the biggest show in the world, and it's been cricket since then. So I don't know if they got to him. Who knows what happened? But yeah, sending out the call right now, guys. Listen to what this man is saying. If you have that kind of technology, don't worry about the patent. Just put it out.
There's a site called Alchemical Science on YouTube, that is talking all about all this technology, cutting edge. I highly recommend it. Um, Also, there's what's his name? Um, Bob Grenier. He's on the Fleshman Memorial Project on YouTube. He's also talking all about this. My good friend Ken Schwartz has developed what they call Moxie Fusion, which is literally using plasma to take energy out of the air. As it does it, it transmutes and creates elements. So there's gold and lead and iron, and this is taking it right out of the air. I mean, it's literally creating gold out of thin air, right?
Alchemy.
Alchemy, this is alchemy. And all of these, it's so weird. You know how if you look at a globe, all the longitudinal lines all converge at the pole, right? They're way separated at the equator, but as they go north or south, they all come together into one circle. That's what's going on right now. There's a convergence of all different disciplines, all watching YouTube and X and all these things and taking it all in, and then they're piling what they know on top of it, and then they're coming out and saying it. And this is going to reach a confluence where you're not going to be able to back down. 12-year-olds will understand it, right?
Yeah.
And then that's it. That's it for the entire establishment. And here's the thing. I believe that the Navy is behind this. And I believe that the Navy tried through these other presidents that I just named, and Trump, tried to work within the political system. They really did. They tried. They wanted to work within the political system. But I think when Trump got kicked out in 2020, they had a meeting or something and said, politics isn't going to work. We have to release all of this technology. We have to do it carefully, and we have to do it surreptitiously, and we have to do it for free. And that's the only way that we can change the political landscape. And it's true. Science does lead politics. All right, it does. The way that ideas format is first they're mystical. The mystics get an idea. Then the second group that gets the idea are the artists. The third group are scientists, and the fourth group are the politicians. And I believe that Trump just made a high-tech businessman the head of the Navy. And everybody's like, what? What? He didn't put a Navy guy in there? What's going on here? He put in a guy who ran a high-tech company to run the Navy. Why? Because that is exactly how these inventions are going to get released. They're going to get released through high-tech corporations. They're going, oh, look what we magically got. Because the problem that the establishment faces here is they've had this stuff since the 1950s.
Yeah.
They never released it. That is criminal. That is criminal. And they know it. And so what they want to do is make it look like, oh, aliens did it, or this incredible corporation here did it, right? Apple invented it, right? So I believe the iPad was not invented by Apple. I believe the iPad was invented by the secret space program, and they finally gave it to Steve Jobs and said, here, put this out and create a pedigree of how you invented it. And that's how we'll say it was invented. And I know Steve Jobs is rolling over in his grave right now, and I don't care. But I believe that a lot of the stuff that's coming out is coming out from these programs. And we're right on the verge. If this guy gets who he nominates gets in, and I think he will, then that's it. Right? You're gonna see like a plethora of amazing inventions that nobody ever thought of coming out over the next 4 years. Because that's the only way that Trump can save the economy. All right. Yeah. We're in actuality $80 trillion in debt, not 36 or whatever they're saying. It's 80 trillion. And there's no way he can get out of it. The only way he can get out of it is to release free energy. And once that happens, man, there is going to be such a boom. I mean, people living in podunk nowhere are going to be having free energy, and they'll be inventing stuff and doing stuff. And it doesn't matter where you live. If you've got a vehicle that can take you from podunk nowhere to New York in 20 minutes,
I'd love to see it. I'd love to be one of the first people to pull out a chainsaw and start cutting down these stupid power line poles.
It would be wonderful, wouldn't it?
Yes.
That's what's going to happen. And that's what Stephen Greer, I'm good friends with Stephen Greer, and I know that's what he wants. He wants all the roads dug up and turned back into wilderness.
Yeah.
All the highways to disappear. He wants all the hydroelectric dams to go away. He wants the nuclear power plants to be taken down. He wants it all. And he actually understands it, and I do too. It's just that I don't have, and he doesn't have any of the scientific legitimacy to actually do it. But he's saying that within 30 days, he's got 5 or 6 whistleblowers that are about to come out, and um, he's marrying that information with the free energy information. So there must be something there
Yeah.
that he knows that he's not telling us that's about to come out. And again, he says that these men, mostly men, I guess, are afraid of getting arrested and being thrown in jail. And
Yeah.
that's why they're coming forth.
Yeah.
So hang on, folks. It is
Hang
going to
on.
wow.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I'd love to see it happen. I'm going to ask you this too. We've talked about eras and shifts, and we talked about the 50s, and I think in 1947 we saw some kind of a shift in the power structure here. I think that in 47 you're seeing this integration of Nazis coming in to the Americas and bringing their technology. And I think you're seeing with von Braun at the helm, these Nazis sort of infiltrated the aerospace world.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's some of that still lingering today, and if they're going to try to continue to suppress the release of this information.
They are. And that's why we have to be more intelligent than we've been in the past. And that means that we have to give up the greed. Um, we have to convince these inventors that that money should not be the object. That you will get money, but that should not be the object. Because the thing is that all the rising tide lifts all boats. So if we have free energy, we're going to, there's not even going to have to be any wars. All the wars are over energy eventually. The whole reason that we're going after Russia right now is because we got more oil and natural resources than anybody on Earth. And
Yeah.
and that will all end. And then if you can travel anywhere you want in little time or nothing, then the world's just all going to become one. If I want to find out what's really going on in Iran, I just take my car and I go to Tehran and I ask people what's going on, right? And that's what's going to start happening. And that's basically what stopped the wars in Europe from European countries from fighting each other. They got to know each other. And once you get to know each other, I don't want to hurt you. You're a nice guy, and that's the kind of thing that's about to happen. And it's just going to get better and better. And AI is going to complement the whole thing. And everybody's afraid of AI. I'm not afraid of AI. The AI I deal with is dumb as hell. But the AI is going to facilitate it. You can see right now that Elon Musk and Ramaswamy are going. What I would do is I would put software on all of the government workers' computers, and then I would have an AI do a keystroke analysis of everybody's computers on a daily basis. And we'll know how long you've been on your computer every day. And you're going to find out they're on for about an hour. The rest of the time, they're all on YouTube and email and all the rest. But you're going to find out they're not working about an hour a day. And then the AI is going to sweep right through it and going to clean everybody up. It's not going to fire you because you're a Republican, a Democrat, you're white, you're black, you're gay. It's going to fire you because you aren't working. And it's all going to be done by AI. The AI is going to take the data, it's going to analyze the data, then it's going to inform you that you're not working. And there'll be no people involved. And then, if I was them, I would have AI make 50, 60% of the decisions that the government's making. All the little tiny decisions, like does this guy, does he deserve to be on Medicare? Is he on the right policy? Right? You don't need a human being to do that. This is a perfect job for AI to do. So I imagine this is where they're going with this. And it is like the end of the fourth turning and the beginning of the first turning. We're in it right now. We're at the beginning of the end of the fourth turning and the end of the beginning of the first turning. Trump is the first turning president, just like Roosevelt was the first turning president the last time we had a first turning, right? And Roosevelt is the most powerful president of the last 80 years. So Trump has the ability to be the most powerful president of the next 80 years. And he's chosen people in their early 40s to do all of the cabinet work. All right. These people are going to be here for 35 years or more. So he's doing exactly what you want to do if you're trying to create a revolution. You choose people in their early 40s, you stick by them. You know, if they make a mistake, you say it's okay, keep going. And this is exactly what guys in their 70s are supposed to do. That's
Yeah.
exactly what they're supposed to do.
And on a practical level, just to maybe get people excited and maybe, plant a seed here for people to be maybe even pushing for this. You just imagine going back to free energy. Imagine a world, imagine how much money you would save if you don't have to pay an energy bill every month to some corrupt
Yep.
electric service who has a monopoly over your area. And while we're at it, we might as well just start going back to collecting our own water, and maybe we can figure out some sort of a community agreement and get rid of a water bill while we're at it.
Oh,
And
we
then maybe
can.
even the DMV, maybe we can even knock that out.
If you have enough energy, and you would with free energy, there are devices which will take a gallon an hour right out of the atmosphere, even where I'm at with, 10% humidity. They will do it. Jesse Ventura told me he had one at his house in Cabo, in Cabo San Lucas down in southern Baja, right? There's no water there. There's no rivers there. There's nothing. He has this machine that takes the water right out of the air, and he's getting 24 gallons a day out of it. So this technology all exists.
Yeah.
So we are going to be completely free of all of this very, very soon. And we haven't even touched on what's going on in the medical front. Oh my, the medical front. Oh my God. They have the ability now to literally put a new heart in you while you're alive, while you have your own heart. In other words, they can replace your heart with a brand new heart. And all it is just this like genetic reproducing
Yeah.
mechanism. It has nothing to do. So, people have a cancer of the kidneys or something. Oh, we'll just replace your kidneys, right? And you can still work and everything. I mean, it's not like you have to even be in the hospital. They just like inject this stuff into your kidneys, and it just reproduces your kidneys.
Yeah.
So we're on the verge of so many things right now that I pride myself on keeping track of all this stuff, and I'm losing track.
Well, I loved where this conversation has been going, and I meant to get to this earlier, but we kind of touched on this. You talked about the French esoteric tradition. We talked about plasma entities and etheric energy, and I'm in alchemy, and I'm very interested in alchemy. I wish I had more hours in a day to study it, but I'm actually reading your book right now, Mysteries of the Great Cross of Ende. And I'm not done with it, but I'm fascinated by this idea in this book that the Gothic cathedrals in Europe have encoded in their architecture this alchemical information, and maybe we could call it occult secrets. It's amazing.
It is amazing. It's absolutely astonishing. And uh, uh, it just sits right under your nose and nobody sees it. And but the buildings themselves are alchemy. The
Yes.
Gothic cathedrals themselves are alchemy. They were built to bring down the etheric energy, the plasma energy, to concentrate it on the floor through the steeples. And then the stained glass windows were meant to cause a change in your pineal gland as different colored lights hit your eyes. They cause different secretions in your pineal gland. And what people don't realize is the Gothic cathedrals also have a crypt in their basement where it's completely light free. Um, and this is done on purpose because they're working with light and dark in these alchemical traditions, with the whole point of igniting the pineal gland and creating the light body or the rainbow body. And we know this is true because there's traditions all over the world, from Peru to Tibet to Europe, um, that have this same tradition of being able to ignite the pineal gland. So all of this is all coming out at the same time, and it's destined to change our species almost into a different species. And which I think is like say the plot of the movie 2001, Space Odyssey. It's how transformation of humanity can begin, and we're in it right now, and there's no turning back. They will try to stop it. They will start wars. They will spread vaccine or spread pandemics and give us poison vaccines and spread disinformation everywhere, so we're confused and everything. But with the increased emanations from galactic center, they're going to lose. And it's just, sad that they have to destroy everything on their way out.
Yeah, and just thinking about something you said there, I think it's the Chartres Cathedral that was built on maybe like a pagan shrine that has this labyrinth beneath it. And it
Yeah.
seems like from the basement to the roof of these cathedrals, they were meant for something more, something bigger. There's like a technology involved there. And I don't know, I just was thinking about this as we were talking today because I am reading the book, but it seems like maybe we could experience a going back to some of these older technologies that have been forgotten about.
Yeah, that's my dream, is to tear down the cities. I know it's going to be 100 years from now before we get here, but I dream that we tear down the cities and rebuild everything with sacred geometry and with the knowledge of how to draw down these forces that are in the atmosphere around us, the plasma etheric energy, which we could not only use as electricity, but we could also use it for healing, which is the real purpose of the cathedrals. They used to be open 24/7 in the old days. And that meant that you could go into the cathedral at 2 in the morning, right? And there'd be candles lit, and there'd be people laying in the pews who were sick, right? And that there was no hospitals, there was no doctors. You went to the cathedral when you were sick. And why did that? Because the etheric energies were being concentrated inside the cathedral through the granite that they used to build it, the way that the steeples were built, the way that the labyrinths, all of them had labyrinths in those days. So if you were sick, you would try to walk around the labyrinth, and that would cause you to absorb all of this energy. And I have walked the labyrinth several times at Chartres Cathedral. I can tell you, it's like it's like being in a high altitude and then suddenly descending down to a low altitude. With the rush of oxygen and like football teams and athletes train at high altitude, right? So that when they come down and play at sea level, they're like their lungs are full and they got full of energy and everything. That's what it's like. It's like that. It's like a high. You're almost like, wow, I can really feel it. And I was healthy and young when I did it, but nowadays, of course, this is all locked off and you can't do
Yeah,
it
it's
anymore.
locked up. I got lucky when I moved out to Nashville. There was it's not a cathedral, but it's almost like a mini cathedral. It's a very old church, and it has the big high tower, that's almost like some sort of a connection point with us in the heavens. And it's got the very ornate esoteric type of a symbol on it. And when I first moved out here, it was unlocked and it had these two big old red doors. And by the way, I think this is one of these places just way older. That it probably, it predates the city, I think. But
Probably.
yeah, I could go in there and they had candles lit. It's the whole situation you just described. I could go in there and I could meditate or I could pray. And if somebody came in, they would sit far away and you had your own little private meditation. But now it's locked up. It's such a shame.
Yeah, all the cathedrals when I was young were open. They started locking them early 70s. They were getting stolen. People were breaking in and stealing
Yep.
everything, and I can't blame them for doing it. But yeah, it was a heartbreak because I used to travel around the United States and Europe and going into cathedral because I just like the feeling of it. And now, of course, you can't do it. So it's a sad thing, but we're going to recreate the world, and we're going to recreate this architecture, and we're going to have buildings that heal and not buildings that make us sick, which is what we have now. And yeah, these glass steel towers that we all work in are the worst thing for us in all humanity. And forced air heating and air conditioning are the worst thing you can do to yourself. So, we got to work all these problems out, but we're identifying them finally.
Yeah.
And not only are we identifying them, but younger people are beginning to understand what we're saying so that they will have the years and the energy to actually do this. So that's why it's so important to keep talking, because it's not going to be you that does it. It's not going to be your kids, maybe even that, but it could be your grandkids. And so we have to keep this going. And if we do get extended life, and old farts like me live on for a few more decades than we're supposed to, well, then the wisdom will be passed on, that is passed on, will be the greatest wisdom of all. So, old farts like me are trying to pass out the wisdom that we know so that you guys can use it and pass it on to your followers. But, if we can live a little bit longer, our wisdom will grow too.
Yeah.
So it's really the goal, I think.
Well, that's what this show is about, is trying to perpetuate this information and the just get people excited about it, or get people thinking. If I can just get people thinking, that's a step ahead
Oh, yeah.
in the right direction, because this is very powerful information. I've heard that maybe even these giant bells had a purpose. The old giant church bells were part of, like, maybe a network of this etheric energy that could sync
Oh, no,
towns
they were.
together, and
They
like
were.
at great distances, right? And like even heal people with frequencies.
Yeah, and of course the rose windows are cymatic, so showing that they understood what cymatics was.
Hmm.
And cymatics is the visual, physical description of sound, right? And they had the organ, this gigantic pipe organ, which is just, you can't even believe the vibration of these pipe organs ripping through the granite floor, right? And it just hits you. It's like, whoa. And they were tuned to 432, not to what is it, 340 that we're tuned to now. So they had it tuned to 432, which is completely different vibe. Um, if you ever heard Bach played in 432, it's completely different. And it's not even like, it's like having an incredible spiritual experience just
Yeah.
listening to Bach in 432. I have the entire works of Bach in 432. And so, it was a completely different vibe. Um, you
Yeah,
know,
I've tuned my guitar to that, by the way, just to see, because I'm a
yeah,
I'm a songwriter. I've been in the music business for a long time, and or in and out of it, I should say. But anyway, I got the notion to try this one day. I tuned my guitar to 432, I think it was. It was right
yeah.
in there, and I played all my songs at that. And there's a different resonance. There's a different feeling, and the atmosphere around you kind of changes.
Yeah, and people don't realize that they actually outlawed certain kinds of music in the old days. So you couldn't play things that are called diabolique. Diabolique is it's like what European sirens sound like. Ew, ew, ew. That's diabolique. That was outlawed. You couldn't play that. That was considered um, music that would make you go psychopathic. Um, and heavy metal music, honestly, is based on diabolique.
Mhm.
It is. Metallica and Black Sabbath and all the big, huge heavy metal bands, they're using Diabolique. That's like their standard song. So when, they say, oh, the devil's associated with heavy metal, well, yeah, he is. There's a famous Simpsons where Bart goes to hell. I don't know if you ever saw it, but I don't know what he did, but he goes to hell. He gets in a skateboard accident or something. He goes to hell, and the devil's there. The devil's on his Macintosh, and the devil says, "Oh, you're early. You're not supposed to be here for another 50 years." And he says, I got to send you back. And Bart goes, I don't want to go back. He goes, that's too bad. You got to go back. He goes, you got any advice for me? He goes, yeah, listen to heavy metal music.
Yeah, yeah.
It was hilarious. But, it
Well,
is a
in a lot of those bands like Metallica and that the thrash movement in particular,
thrash.
they were kind of uh, incorporating this shock to your system into the music.
That's
So
what
I
it
think
was.
it was almost intentional for some of these bands. I mean,
Oh,
even
yeah.
Black Sabbath, they were kind of intentionally putting on this occultist vibe just to
Yeah,
shock
but they
people.
studied it.
Yeah.
I don't know about
Well,
the guy.
I know Jimmy Page did for sure.
Oh, for sure, Jimmy Page knew. That
Yeah.
guy was a musical genius. He
Yes.
had studied all that stuff before he was 21. He knew it all, and he knew exactly what he was doing.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of genius in Jimmy Page and what he did. And but he was using diabolique. I mean, he was. And he used it brilliantly because when you
Yes.
listen to like Stairway to Heaven, he leaves the diabolique out all the way until the end. It's just a lilting, country folk, European folk music song, right? About folk heroes from, the pagan world. And then at the very end, he goes completely diabolique. And it's brilliant. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's brilliant. And
You're so right about that. And he was, he bought. Of course, we all know the story. He bought Crowley's house out in Scotland, and
yes,
but Robert Plant, the singer, the lyrics there, a lot of people just attribute that to Lord. Oh, he was interested in Lord of the Rings. I
oh
think
no,
what you just said was dead on. No, this is about old pagan myth and legend. Like the Kalevala is what Tolkien based Lord of the Rings on. It all goes back to these pagan myths and legends.
yeah, yeah, and it's deep within the European, ethos, right?
Yes.
So, and Jimmy Page knew all this. He knew all of this, um, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And uh, and there were others, that knew it. But in music, I have to say that Jimmy Page knew it more than anybody else. And I believe Led Zeppelin was the inspiration for heavy metal music. And
Yeah.
there were people before Led Zeppelin, but I think Led Zeppelin gave birth to Metallica and all
Mhm.
the other bands.
I'd say it
Yeah.
was those two bands. I would say that we mentioned. I'd say it's Sabbath and Zeppelin.
Yep, yep, yeah, and you're right. I think it was tongue in cheek with Black Sabbath. I think he kind of looked at Led Zeppelin, saw what they were doing, and so I'm going to take this 10 times 10.
Yeah.
There's always this kind of tongue in cheek thing with it where you never really, it was never serious, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, and then there's bands like Blue Oyster Cult where it seems like those guys probably had a couple books on the shelf that dealt with some things. They seem like
oh yeah,
they were real, really
they were
into it.
real. They were all studying all of this stuff, and they knew that, and frankly, this all comes out of Aleister Crowley, and
Yes.
Aleister Crowley was the guy, and I believe the Beatles were heavily influenced by Aleister Crowley also. So, and it was 20 years ago today, in 1967. Well, it was 20 years right before 20 years since Aleister Crowley died. And and there's a lot of references in the Beatles music to mind control and all sorts of things. And what we're dealing with here is a giant um, mind control project, basically, run by occult forces out of England
Mhm.
and um, and spread here into the United States, but not so much. It was mostly based out of England, and it was the Beatles, and it was Led Zeppelin, and it was Black Sabbath, and a bunch of other bands, and they all
Yeah,
kind of have the same pedigree. They all have the same producers and record companies and goals.
Crowley's influence for sure was you saw it in all these bands. They all nodded to Crowley. The Beatles had him on an album. Zeppelin nodded to him. The Eagles nodded to him, I think, or Anton LaVey, one of the two. But you see Crowley. in the background becoming this kind of silent pop icon in all those early rock bands. And, we can wind down with this because I appreciate your time, but I did want to ask you about something. I think this ties into it. I think, do you, I'm getting ready to, and I think Crowley fits into this. I'm getting ready to jump into theosophy for a project I'm working on, and just look more into that more than I ever have. I'm reading some Helena Blavatsky, and she talked about humanity going through a golden age. And Crowley seemed to be looking forward to a new era as well. And it looks like they were actually trying to bring about that. Do you think
Yeah.
that they do you think we've entered a a new age, or we're still in Pisces, or what? Because they seem to
No,
be very
no.
concerned about that.
No, no, no. We've entered into a new age. What Crowley was trying to do was control that new age.
Mm.
But you can't. You can't control it because if you're getting enlightened, and there's a guy from the previous era trying to create a golden age, it's not going to work because you don't really know what that golden age is going to look like. We're not in the golden age. The golden age is about 7,000 years from now, but we've passed out of the dark age. And we're in that crazy period in between the two ages where everything gets confused and everybody's lost and everything. But uh, we're definitely out of the dark age. Now we just got to get over the hangover that we're suffering from it. And it's the worst hangover that you get during the entire Yuga system because we all have PTSD from being in the Kali Yuga. We were tortured and there was wars everywhere and disease and famine and everything. And now that we're coming out of it, we're going, why did we put ourselves through this? What was the point of all that? And as you mature, you begin to forget, if you're mentally balanced, the terrible things that happened to you when you were younger. And that's what will happen. We'll begin forgetting, and things are going to get a lot better. And I'm pretty optimistic about what's about to happen. So hang
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Is the next age Aquarius, in your opinion?
We're already in Aquarius. We passed
Okay.
into Aquarius in December 21st, 2020.
Yeah.
And we're also in the Dwapara Yuga. So all of these cycles have converged at once, and then they have the ramifications. There's no coincidence that AI emerged at the beginning of the Aquarian age. All right. And it's no coincidence that this technology is emerging now. And it's all going to reach a confluence, and it's going to be breathtaking beyond belief.
Wow. Not to mention that you're saying the beginning of Aquarius was December 2020. And of course, we all know how everything changed in 2020.
Yep.
It's
Yeah, it was the very end of the COVID crisis and the very beginning of the vaccine crisis.
Yeah.
And we've learned a lot about things since then. And we learned not to trust experts and not to trust authority. And that's a good thing
Yeah.
because you trust yourself, not authority. And so, that's all part of this awakening. And more people are awakened now than ever. I'm old enough to know, believe me. In 2020, there were people that absolutely hated me that now agree with me 100%. And and I haven't seen anybody go the other direction, by the way. Haven't
Hmm.
seen anybody who was like, all awakened get stupid. So all
Yeah.
going in the one direction.
Yes.
That's a great thing.
Yes, yes, it does. It's good to see. It's good to be a part of it. I mean, I think that this episode is going to resonate with people. I mean, I think you just dropped the hammer. And what's the best part of this is that there's this looming hope finally. Feels like for the first time in a long time, there's a hope. And I'm not putting all that hope in the pockets of politicians or the hands of the incoming administration. I don't put my faith in any man or any group of men, but it seems like the country, people who aren't in politics, we're ready for this change. And we're ready. I think people are ready, or at least curious about a lot of the things that we talked about today. This is a huge milestone of an episode for me because we just entered 2025, and this is exactly the kind of episode I wanted to do.
Yeah, well, we're at the end of the fourth turning, started in 1945. The frequencies shift every 80 years. This is the big frequency shift of the ages. And the only thing I can advise everybody is to take a deep breath and let your inner Zen master control you, because that's what you're going to need right now is some kind of spiritual discipline that's going to help you thrive through the chaos.
Any words of advice for young content creators?
Yeah, be unafraid. Uh, don't let nature loves the courageous and removes obstacles for them. So when nature sees that you're a brave MFer, it's going to lower all the obstacles and things are just going to happen like you won't believe. But you have to have courage. And the courage is to speak out and speak out to people who you disagree with and be nice. Don't be confrontational. Um, you know, sugar goes long, sugar is better than vinegar. So compliment the person before you lower the boom on them. And, say, I know you're smart enough to understand what I'm about to tell you. Say things like that, frame it in a way that is friendly, and they will begin to understand. And the thing is that all you really want to do is plant the seed. You don't want to sit there and convert them. That's not what we're about. We're just about plant the seed and let them convert themselves. I'm guarantee you, I've done that to hundreds and hundreds and maybe not thousands of people. And you're going to get a karmic return that's going to be unbelievable. So do it because, it's really worth it. So be courageous, tell people what's really going on, and don't get frustrated when they don't believe you. Just go on to the next person. You can't convert everybody. You can't make everybody understand what's happening, but you can plant the seed. And there's enough contradiction in the society right now that people are open to what we're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. We appreciate the work you've put out. I consider you to be one of the more profound voices in this space, and I know you surround yourself with other profound voices. So I have a big, immense respect for your work. Maybe one of these days I can convince you to come on and talk to me about go deep in alchemy. We'll see one of these days. 'Cause I'm reading your book and I'm going to finish it. And we barely touched on Fulcanelli and some of that stuff that I find so fascinating. But for now, I just want to say, thanks for coming on. Tell everybody about your latest projects or your upcoming projects and where they can find you.
Yeah, so my new movie's out on Amazon Prime, Clockwork Shining, Kubrick's Odyssey 3. My other film from a year ago is also up on Amazon, JFKX. I believe it's free up there now. And you can find all of my writings and free stuff at jayweidner.com. I have a show on YouTube called Reality Check, and you can see all of my 25 plus documentaries and films either on Gaia.com or Amazon.
Excellent. Jay, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
As always, break the mold, conquer the realm, and thanks for listening.